The series opens with James being jolted awake by his ringing cell phone. When he comes to, he realizes he's lying next to Eileen, his friend's sister. Panicked and completely disoriented, he hastily gets dressed and goes downstairs to join his friends. At school, he receives a desperate message from his twin sister Lydia, who tearfully confesses that she's caused a terrible disaster. We learn that James comes from an extremely wealthy family and attends the most elite school in the country. While James is fooling around with his friends, Lydia suddenly appears crying. Alarmed, James asks her what happened. Lydia explains that a girl named Ruby caught her with Mr. Sutton, her philosophy teacher with whom she's secretly having an affair. She's terrified that Ruby will expose her. The story jumps back 4 hours. Ruby is on the bus to school. She sees a pregnant woman standing there and immediately offers her seat. This reveals that Ruby comes from a poor family and dreams of studying at Oxford University. She works tirelessly to secure a scholarship to this prestigious school normally reserved for the wealthy. To avoid jeopardizing her dream, Ruby avoids all trouble. At school, she meets her friend Lynn, who used to be rich before her family went bankrupt. Ruby attends Mr. Sutton's philosophy class. He quizzes the students on Descartes' philosophy. Lydia answers incorrectly, but Ruby responds precisely. Sutton praises Ruby's intelligence, which deeply upsets Lydia. After class, Ruby forgets to pick up her letter of recommendation from Sutton. She leaves Lynn behind and rushes to his office and catches Sutton kissing Lydia. Shocked, she drops her documents. Sutton tries to explain, but Ruby runs away without listening. Devastated, Lydia tells James everything. Later, James arrives at school and attends a student meeting until Ruby appears. He pulls her from the room and demands to speak with her. Desperate to protect his sister, he offers Ruby a large sum of money for her silence. Ruby is horrified, calls him the most disgusting person she has ever met, returns the money, and leaves. James notices her ripped bag and suggests she could at least use the money for that, but Ruby refuses again. Ruby goes to work. We learn that she works several jobs alongside her studies to support her paralyzed father and save up for a new wheelchair as her old one is broken. She happily accepts her paycheck. On her way home, she meets her sister Amber, and together, they go home. They prepare dinner and share a warm family moment. However, it breaks Ruby's heart to see that her father sleeps downstairs because he cannot reach his room without a wheelchair. She continues to save. The next day, Ruby returns to school to confront Sutton about the letter of recommendation. He reassures her that everything in it is true. Ruby explains that she's not interested in his personal life, but if the situation escalates, the letter will be worthless. She decides to ask the principal to recommend her again. Despite her burden, she keeps her secret to herself, even from Lynn. Suddenly, James reappears and demands to know what price Ruby wants from his family. Ruby refuses money. James then suddenly begins to undress, assuming she wants something physical. Ruby is furious and threatens to kill him if he comes near her again before heading off to the sports game. We learn that James is the captain of the school team and a star player. His team wins, but his friend Alistair ruins the victory by attacking an opponent. He is immediately expelled. Standing beside Ruby, Alistair talks to her, and James becomes jealous. Ruby goes to the principal and asks him for a letter of recommendation. He notices that she hasn't participated in any extracurricular activities in the past 2 years. Ruby lies and says she's the head of the events committee. The principal agrees on the condition that she successfully organizes the welcome party for the new students. Overjoyed, Ruby barely has time to celebrate before James intercepts her again and mocks her poverty, claiming she could never threaten someone like him. Ruby later breaks down and cries on her way home. James and Lydia return to their luxurious home while Ruby works tirelessly on the party. The event is going perfectly, just as the principal wanted, until suddenly provocative music starts playing and strippers appear on stage. The entire event descends into chaos. It is revealed that James, he was a saboteur. Ruby is furious and confronts him. James coldly tells her that no one would believe her anyway, not even about his sister. The headmaster summons James and expels him from the club, while Ruby is denied a letter of recommendation. He asks if there's anything going on between them. James is afraid Ruby might betray Lydia, but Ruby remains silent. Ruby begs for a second chance and promises that the charity gala will be perfect. The headmaster agrees, and as punishment forces James to work on Ruby's team. They both protest, but he dismisses them. Ruby challenges James she will organize the gala, and he won't be able to stop her from going to Oxford. James vows to make her life a living hell. A flashback shows young James playing chess with his father Mortimer. Mortimer deliberately makes him believe he's going to lose, only to let him win in the end. He explains to James that powerful people always control the outcome. This shapes James's worldview. Ruby and her team begin planning the gala, relieved that James is absent. Meanwhile, James trains, but is suspended for the rest of the year. The order comes directly from Mortimer. Devastated, James vows revenge. Ruby will regret ever coming to this school. At the next meeting, James scraps Ruby's entire plan and suggests a Victorian theme. The team loves it. Ruby has to give in. She needs someone in Victorian clothing for the poster and reluctantly asks James for access to his family's fashion collection. He mocks her and refuses. Desperate, Ruby asks Amber for help. Amber agrees to sew a Victorian dress. Meanwhile, James challenges his father to a race and deliberately lets him win. Mortimer is pleased. However, when James asks to rejoin the team, Mortimer rejects him. The deal with a new investor is more important. James is heartbroken. Ruby and Amber finish the dress. Exhausted, Ruby asks Amber to iron it. At the same time, James, frustrated, sabotages Ruby's sewing machine. Distracted by his messages, Ruby forgets the dress under the iron. It burns. Although Amber tries to comfort her, Ruby is completely hopeless. The next day, a new Oxford mentor named Pippa arrives, challenging the students. Another heated argument erupts between James and Ruby. James mocks her poverty. Ruby hits him hard, saying he has never earned anything through his own efforts and that his arrogance, title, and wealth have left him empty inside. James is shaken and leaves. Ruby feels guilty. Meanwhile, Sutton finally ends his relationship with Lydia, believing her family would never accept him. Lydia is devastated. The next day, Ruby searches for a solution to the ruined dress. Her father encourages her. James, unable to get Ruby out of his mind, draws her portrait at home. His father interrupts him and takes him to a meeting with Eileen, the daughter of a wealthy investor. Mortimer plans for James to marry her one day, but James can only think about Ruby. He texts Ruby to prepare for a trip to London to photograph dresses. Ruby is stunned when James's chauffeur arrives at her door. During the drive, James and Ruby share playful and personal moments. Ruby confesses that no one in her family has ever gone to university. James is deeply impressed. At the company, Ruby admires the dresses. James persuades her to try one on if he also wears a suit. She looks stunning, and James is completely captivated. But then, Mortimer appears, humiliates Ruby, and berates James in front of her. Ashamed, Ruby leaves London and takes the train home alone. There, she locks herself in her room and cries. The next day, she sees photos of her and James all over the school. Furious, she confronts him, only to learn that he posted the photos because he wanted others to see what he sees, how extraordinary she is. Ruby tells him everything has to go back to the way it was before. Overwhelmed, she collapses in the bathroom. Later in Pippa's class, she can't speak and runs out. At home, she finds her father crying. He'd skipped dinner when he decided to bake a cake for their wedding anniversary. Ruby comforts him. James later visits her and confesses everything. He posted the photos because he thinks she's special. He invites her to a party and gives her the dress from London. He begs her to wear it. But Mortimer orders James to stay away from Ruby, calling her beneath her. He explains that he himself married into wealth and that girls like Ruby would never belong in their world. James disagrees, but Mortimer claims Ruby can't solve problems and will ruin James's future. At school, Ruby is mocked by the other girls. Lynn defends her. Ruby apologizes to Lynn, who immediately forgives her. When Ruby reveals that James invited her to the party, Lynn is thrilled. Ruby goes to the party. James is overjoyed to see her. Lydia, drunk, warns Ruby not to break James's heart. Eileen, jealous, spills juice all over Ruby's dress. When James leaves the party with Ruby, Eileen becomes furious. At the pool, one of James's friends jokingly throws Ruby into the water, unaware of her trauma. Ruby panics and nearly drowns. James rescues her. Trembling, she collapses in his arms. In the car, she tells him that she almost drowned in the sea as a child, and that her father, trying to save her, was hit by a boat and has been paralyzed ever since. She blames herself. James comforts her until she falls asleep. Ruby dreams of kissing him until her dream is filmed by his friends. It turns into a nightmare. The next day, she thanks James via text message. He replies with a smile. At school, they enter the building together, shocking everyone. Ruby is embarrassed, but James tells her to just follow him. Meanwhile, Lydia asks Eileen if Ruby and James are really together. Mortimer picks Lydia up for breakfast and praises her creativity while using her ideas for James's presentations without acknowledging her efforts. Lydia is heartbroken. James continues to help Ruby with the gala preparations. He learns that the event is on her birthday and promises to be the first to dance with her. Ruby discovers that someone has bought live birds and takes on new tasks to solve the problem. Lydia becomes furious when she sees Sutton talking to Pippa. Sutton reminds her of their agreement. Lydia is devastated. At home, James prepares to attend his family's press conference on the same evening as Ruby's gala. Mortimer demands that he put the company before a girl. James is heartbroken. Ruby celebrates her birthday that evening with her family. James gives her a designer bag and a portrait sketch. She is deeply touched. Later at school, he sadly tells her that he can't come to the gala because of his father. He confesses that he never wanted this life, not the future his father planned for him, not even Oxford. He feels trapped. Ruby tells him to do what truly makes him happy. Later, Ruby asks Lee to reinstate James to the lacrosse team if the gala is a success. Lee agrees. James helps Ruby with the final preparations before he has to leave for the press conference. On the drive, Lydia recites James's entire speech. She wrote it. James realizes that their father is using them both like pawns. He tells Lydia that they have to take control of their own lives. Together, they order Percy to turn the car away from the press conference. At the gala, everything is perfect. Ruby looks beautiful. When James arrives, they both beam. At the press conference, Mortimer wonders where James is until Lydia appears in his place and announces that James won't be coming. Back at the gala, Ruby and James dance until suddenly the lights go out. Together, they go down to the basement and fix the power. When the lights come back on, the hall is empty. Everyone has left. Ruby tells James that she's received approval to reinstate him on the lacrosse team. Overwhelmed, James kisses her. Then Mortimer appears and catches them. He sends Ruby away and takes Lydia with him. Once they reach the top, everything seems normal. Lee congratulates Ruby and tells her that the letter of recommendation she has is only a copy. The original has already been sent to Oxford. Ruby and Lynn celebrate. Outside, Ruby thanks Sutton and says he's her role model. Sutton is touched. Meanwhile, Mortimer loses his temper and insults Lydia, calling her a failure. Lydia shouts back that she designed the entire collection James presented. Mortimer doesn't care. Then he berates James, calling him a playboy who doesn't care about anything. Mortimer mocks Ruby as a cheap girl and says James will end up pushing her father around in a wheelchair. James loses his temper and asks if Mortimer is having Ruby watched. Mortimer confirms it and claims Ruby only wants money. James shouts, "You can't say anything about that girl." Mortimer slaps him. Percy intervenes furiously, like a real father. Mortimer threatens. If James continues to see Ruby, he will destroy her Oxford dream and plunge her family into poverty. Then he leaves. The next day, they return. James and Lydia return to school. Lydia is unhappy. Sutton approaches her, confesses his love, and asks her to run away with him. Lydia is overjoyed. Ruby sees James and smiles, but he coldly walks past her. The other students laugh at her. Stunned, Ruby confronts James. He says she knows nothing about him and that he could never be with a girl like that. Tearfully, he rides off on his motorcycle. Ruby is devastated. At home, her family finds the money she saved for the wheelchair. Her father says it's not her responsibility. Ruby cries and believes she's to blame for everything. That night, James comes home drunk. Cordelia helps him into bed. He asks her if she ever wanted to give up everything. Cordelia tells him about her past. She chose power over love. Ruby returns James's bag and sends him an angry message. "Fuck you, James." Lydia reads the message and talks to James. She tells him she loves Sutton and doesn't care what her father thinks. She urges James to follow his heart. The next day, Ruby is furious, but she misses James terribly. James is preparing for young Dalford and misses Ruby just as much. Ruby meets Sutton, and he tells her that her father's accident was never her fault. It was simply fate. Every story gets better with your voice. Leave a comment below so we can continue the conversation. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click the subscribe button now. There's even more to discover in the next episodes.